teepees in the trousers all round for those of the electric utopian persuasion here in Australia, with exciting new lobby group data showing our proud brown household paradise on track for 100,000 new EV sales this year, a new record. Yes. Electric utopia ever so slightly, tantalisingly closer today. Who doesn't want that? I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au. New cars cheap, but Australia only website. God! Of all the thrilling bullshit stories this week, this one is my cake-taking favourite. Australia on track to break annual electric vehicle sales milestone. If I'm not mistaken, this stimulating prospect is awakening the al fresco accommodation potential in my trousers also, albeit metaphorically. One is only human, even at my age. Tell us more. Australia is on track to hit an annual milestone of 100,000 electric vehicle sales this year, despite tough economic conditions, according to the Electric Vehicle Lobby Group, that bastion of intellectual rigour, the Electric Vehicle Council. When you say it out loud, it almost sounds somehow official, doesn't it? Still, that is amazing, dude. Amazing arithmetic, I would argue. Very creative. Lobby groups, always with the truth just over there, somehow at arm's length. This report is sponsored by Saley, the new Esim app backed by Nord Security. Saley is an awesome solution for staying connected without incurring those dreaded roaming charges. More at saley.com/AEJC. As a journalist, I've been basically everywhere, and I've had the sky-high roaming bills to prove it. But you can sidestep those with Saley. Just select the country you're heading to, choose a data plan, download the Saley app, and activate the plan before you leave. When you arrive, you step off the aircraft completely connected. A couple of clicks is all it takes. No need to sprint for a hotspot. Saley just works. Go to saley.com/AEJC now. You'll get 15% off. You'll never have to stand in a queue for a SIM card again, and you'll be seamlessly connected back home. Link in the description. Saley is available in over 150 countries. It's Android and iOS compatible. There's 24/7 chat support. And if you later discover that your device is not eSIM compatible, you will get a full refund. An eSIM is simple. The app plus your device's hardware creates a virtual SIM inside your phone or a tablet or smartwatch, so there's no need to install a physical SIM for every country that you plan on visiting. Go to saley.com/AEJC now and use promo code AEJC to get that 15% off. Stay connected when you travel and slash that dreaded roaming bill as well. You can trust Saley. It's brought to you by Nord Security. Are we, in fact, as the prestigious Electric Vehicle Council claims, on track to hit 100,000 EVs in Australia? Well, the first 7 months of 2024, 54,267 battery EVs were sold here in Shitsville, which is 7,752 per month on average. Times 12 to annualise that and extrapolate equals, take away Albo's IQ, 93,000, which is not 100,000, is it, dude? Those cheeky fuckers in Lobbyland had to slip in plug-in hybrids to get to the magic 6 figures for their shitty press release, I would argue. Admit it, I double-dead dingoes donger dare them to admit it. The Australian Automobile Association's EV Index shows there were more than 30,000 battery electric and plug-in hybrid vehicle sales in the second quarter of this year, the first time Australia has cracked that figure in a single quarter. You go, girl, crack that magic figure. Jam those plug-ins into the bullshit total while nobody's really looking. They're almost EVs after all, except for the giant freaking combustion engine up the pointy end under the bonnet, which does nearly all of the heavy lifting, in practice. Plug-in hybrid sales are up a staggering 129% so far this year. There's been about 1,500 plug-ins sold every month this year on average, versus about 650 last year per month on average. That's the only way this bullshit on track for six figures hypothesis holds any electrons. Australia has never had so many electric vehicles on the roads. True enough. In other news, America has never had so many Donald Trumps running for president. Twice. And Australia's population has never been higher. Isn't the world simply amazing? Sammy J is the person quoted there. I'm of course using her rap name. Pretty sure Mommy and Daddy would still be calling her Samantha Johnson in as much as anything's, crystal these days. Sammy J is the former cheese of Polestar Shitsville, premium showroom next to the Dunnies, in the basement of Chatty in Melbourne, if you're interested. Polestar, one of my favourite automotive brands, of course, where, if memory serves, Sammy oversaw the launch of the Chinese EV brand, which rocketed from zero to just over zero sales before a high-level tantrum by the organisation, not Sammy J, saw Polestar disinsert itself from the sweet embrace of death, otherwise known as the Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries, which is, of course, T-Dub's Lobbyland boy band. Nasty business. Sammy has divorced Polestar, or perhaps it was a mutual thing or the other way around, who the fuck cares? And she is now the interim steady hand on the tiller at the Electric Vehicle Council in Lobbyland, following the departure of Sinbad Jafari, whose real name is, of course, Bayhad, but to me he always looked somewhat like a pirate, in a good way, kind of like Johnny Depp, only not quite as charismatic. It was a record-breaking quarter for combined battery and plug-in electric vehicle sales. Sammy J there, wearing her Electric Lobbyland jumpsuit, for that quote, metaphorically. The pedant in me would, of course, argue that they all plug in, don't they? The straight battery EVs and the plug-in hybrids all plug in, okay? To disambiguate, I think she really means battery EVs plus plug-in hybrids. This is the only way I can see to bake the bullshit cake and feed 100,000 brand new electric utopians. Kind of like Jesus, only with electric cake instead of, mullet and a few rolls. These sales figures are without precedent. Yeah, Sammy J, they are. That's what a record is, typically. I'd argue respectfully that if there is a precedent, it's generally not a record. Best not to labour the point. Look, the fact is that the whole car industry is very strong right at the moment. There's nothing whatsoever remarkable about EV sales right now, like so far this year. So, when you think about it, that's a perfect time for a horseshit press release. Personal opinion. To illustrate this point, here's another headline that my inner latent chief sub-editor just made up, but which is also true. However, I doubt the electric vehicle Lobbyland mob would probably ever run it. In shit news for electric cars, diesel vehicle sales are growing almost 10% faster than battery EV sales. According to figures from T-Dub's Lobbyland boy band, for the 7 months to July, diesel vehicle sales grew 9.5% compared with the same period in 2023. Battery EVs grew by just 8.7%. And the diesel market is, let's not forget, quite mature, whereas the EV market is emerging off something of a low base. So that's ever so slightly fucked if you want to make EV sales look somehow miraculously strong and on track. It's a great time for a press release, though, to talk things up. There's no zero FBT concession for diesel vehicles, as there is for battery EVs, and yet diesels are outstripping the growth of EVs. Go figure. In the second full year of the government bending over and saying, "Take me net zero," EV sales grew by 8.7%. I'm not sure they actually ever said that, but hey, actions speak louder than words. EV sales 8.7. Diesels grew by 9.5 with no incentivisation whatsoever. And in fact, there's a lot of woke derision and opprobrium, is there not? Plus, the whole market is up 7.9% anyway. So 8.7 doesn't seem that remarkable. EV sales, in the face of immense government incentivisation, are only growing 10% faster than the market at large, despite stockpiles of unsold Teslas that you can see from space, literally, and wall-to-wall discounting making them cheaper in every way. The real story here is, how can EV sales be persistently this fucked? Growth should be meteoric, should it not, on fundamentals, given what's happening around? Perhaps it's just because most people don't want them and they're unsuitable for most people, and those same people are kind of smart enough to realise that the way in which EVs are being pushed down their throats is mostly a scam. Pro tip: 2024 is also pretty much going to be the year of peak plug-in hybrid sales in Australia. Plug-in hybrid sales will stall next year, almost certainly, when the feds cancel the zero FBT incentive from the start of April in 2025. This is already announced and in the works. It's a done deal, dude. And the official tax office guidelines on the treatment of plug-in hybrids around that cut-off date is announced and available online. Nobody statistically is going to want a plug-in hybrid after April when they go back to being full price. We have seen several states prematurely withdraw incentives. It is critical that governments implement targeted programs that enable more Australian households and businesses to make the switch to electric vehicles. Sammy J again there. Interesting to me how lobby groups invariably do this. It's kind of a favourite trick, right? Whose determination is premature? Probably the electric vehicle councils alone, meaning and its members. I mean, heaven forbid that a government would decide that giving some rich, insufferable green twat a taxpayer-funded backhander to buy an expensive electric car that they could already afford is conceivably quite a bad look, not to mention tasteless, immoral and unethical, when that money could be better spent helping people actually doing it tough, or just fixing public transport, the roads and, the hospitals, or perhaps even getting ready for bushfire season, etc. Misinformation is also hampering the electric vehicle transition. Personal opinion. That's a bit rich. A lobby group accusing unnamed others of misinformation. Pot calling kettle black, I'd suggest, if you're still allowed to say that. When I am your Prime Minister, it's going to be more of a dictatorship, obviously. I'm not inclined to rule by consensus. Have you seen the losers in Parliament House? When I'm your Prime Minister, I will do away with these grandiose and fake official-sounding lobbyland names. Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries. Electric Vehicle Council, please. Every lobby group will have to register with my new Federal Department of Bullshit constraint, and we're going to give them an alphanumeric designation. Each one will, by law, only be known as JFlog number whatever. JFlog, of course, for just another fucking lobby group. If misinformation is in fact hampering the electric vehicle transition, I hate that word, as alleged, then I would argue that a well-funded and highly tuned bullshit machine such as the Electric Vehicle Council must be doing a spectacularly crap job. Where's the evidence that misinformation, whatever that is hampering this purported transition? Last time I looked, the hampering was mainly a consequence of facts, such as the high price, the shit range, and the crap charging infrastructure. These kinds of seemingly indefensible claims, such as the misinformation speed hump hypothesis, begs an obvious question. What is the Electric Vehicle Council exactly, and who funds it? Like, specifically, who's coughing up the big bucks? Is it people with a burning desire, pun intended, to prevent climate change, or just a bunch of fairly dirty organisations hoping to shoehorn themselves cheaply in the spandex stripper dress of green virtue? I'd argue it's overwhelmingly the latter. The Electric JFlog members include corporate shitheads such as the epic taxpayer leech known as Transurban, the bastion of stratospheric power prices we know as Ausgrid, Rupert's renowned planet-saving cocks at News Corp, plus cocks from Coles, the dynamic duo of anti-consumerism Combank and Westpac, plus the most criminal car maker on earth, Volkswagen. It's actually hilarious. You should go to electricvehiclecouncil.com.au/members/ and be amazed and uplifted, dude, by who's kicking the tin. It's such a cheap way for big arsehole to paint itself green. Personal opinion. Europcar is there, and I do hope their dues went up when they nearly burned down the air traffic control tower at Sydney Airport with the battery from one of their shitty renter EVs recently. They just pulled it out and left it out there in the weather. Like, what could possibly go wrong? Way to represent, dickheads. And listen to this. Here's what some of those EV Council members claim about themselves on the Electric Vehicle JFlog members page. SA Power Networks is an iconic South Australian business that believes in the power of possibility. The possibility-powered prick teasers at SA Power Network is paid up, delivering the least stable grid in the nation, possibly. Well done. Schneider Electric's purpose is to empower all and to make the most of our energy and resources, bridging progress and sustainability for all. We call this Life is On. Right, Life is On. Capitalised in this way. How the fuck is that a proper noun? Draw me a diagram. They call it Life is On. I call it extreme public masturbation. And to me, it is wholly undignified, even when only metaphoric. There, remember? Polestar, the guiding star. We are an electric performance brand determined to improve the society we live in. That's one interpretation. Another is they sell Chinese EVs and pretend they're Swedish. They're on the brink of bankruptcy, and of course, on my world, it's not possible to improve society by selling EVs that weigh more than a Ford Ranger for more than $100,000 a throw. At Coles Group, we're all about our why, our purpose to sustainably feed all Australians, to help them live healthier, happier lives. No, you're not. You're farmer-screwing shitheads who pump up retail prices to the max and screw ordinary consumers at the other end of the deal, thus spit-roasting Australians endlessly all the way from paddock to plate. And they split the fucking infinitive to sustainably feed, you assholes. Only Only the shat may split the fucking infinitive. It strikes me that organisations such as these, which are so inclined to masturbate publicly in this undignified way, would pay handsomely to lube themselves up by association with as much green slime as the Electric Vehicle JFlog Council is prepared to dredge up. Lots of companies named Something Energy are members also. This generally means we burn coal. But let's pretend we're kind of the future anyway. Please don't hate us. We're part of the Electric JFlog. And then there's all the financial services shitheads, including Custom Fleet, Oryx, Fleet Partners, Nalspa, Smart Group, and Pepper Money. They're all either hell-bent on saving the planet, or they just want to write a shit ton of extra novated leases while the government incentive tap is jammed open. You decide. And all the EV charger manufacturers and installers, they seem to be there as well. Ditto, just saving the planet or possibly trying to cash in. Nissan, Linfox, Jaguar, Land Rover, Three Prong, Daimler Truck, IKEA, all members saving that planet. The green virtue just oozes from every pore, does it not? The facts are that EVs are cheaper to own and run than internal combustion engine vehicles. They reduce air pollution and they're essential to reducing our carbon emissions. We need to see the EV market grow to meet our climate targets. Sammy J there talking it up. Life is on. Possibility power. To sustainably feed. Beam me up, Sammy. Nice sounding catchphrases for sure. Boiling down to EVs are cheaper, cleaner and better. But are they really? I would argue, nah. Cheaper to own and run. Really not sure that's true, with EV depreciation being the hellscape it is presently. And the upfront cost is like $20,000 higher, apples for apples. And insurance, such a minefield. Have you seen the cost of replacement batteries? Jesus. A replacement battery essentially writes the car off, so that's kind of a problem. And there was, of course, that journo. What was her name? Belinda Cleary from the Daily Mail, who borrowed an Ioniq 5 from Hyundai, which itself is a member of the Electric Vehicle JFlog. What the fuck were they thinking there? Ms. Cleary found her regular 900-kilometre jaunt from Sydney to Melbourne cost her 50% more in electricity than the same trip in her petrol car, and it took 3 hours longer. And it wasn't much fun being a woman alone with a kid and a dog in some of those remote charging locations, especially late at night. Still, that's progress, said nobody with a fundamental alignment with reality ever. But you know, life is on. Reducing carbon emissions and meeting our climate targets now. I strongly have to disagree there too, Sammy J, because mainly facts. Transport is about 20% of our national emissions. That's kind of black and white, right there in the government's greenhouse accounts. Passenger vehicles are about half of that. These are facts. That's about 10% of emissions, like total emissions, come from passenger vehicles. And there's 15 million of them infesting our roads. So if we sell, say, 500,000 EVs a year for a decade, and we retire one combustion car for every new EV that we sell, which is basically teleporting ourselves straight into a fictional parallel universe right there, because this is not possible. We'd add 5 million EVs over the time period of 1 decade. If there's no additional burden of carbon footprint for producing those EVs over and above an equivalent ICE car, and if we only ever charge those EVs with green electricity, so we're even deeper in fantasy land now. But if we did all of that to give the other side the fairest of free kicks, we'd have 33% of the passenger fleet electrified and zero emissions. So, awesome. That would be a 6-lane superhighway stretching from Sydney to Perth, exclusively gridlocked with EVs, by the way. That's how many we're talking about. 33% of the fleet, 33% of 10% of national emissions. That's about 3% of reduction, right? 3%. If we teleport to a parallel universe where such a thing is even possible, that's the maximum benefit to emissions. 3%. If this is the front line of some life and death battle to save the planet, it's time to put down the tools and make like Nero, like fiddle up, dude, because the joint's on fire and we might as well party until the lights go out. This bullshit J-flog rhetoric, personal opinion, does not seem to hold up to basic scrutiny, at least not to me. A Kia Picanto or a Mazda 2 would be a far greener option than a Polestar 3 or an EV6 or Model Y, whatever. Or just keep the car you already own. There's an original idea. And fix the fucked public transport system. Make it free and not shit. And people would leave their cars at home, or at least many more of them would, to the tune of more than 3%. Add rooftop solar and a battery to decouple your house from the coal-fired grid. So much more effective than an EV. Pro tip, okay? One Kia EV9 has sufficient battery resources on board to take 8 fucking houses essentially off the grid. These are all superior options with immeasurably better environmental ROI. Saving the planet one $80,000 2-ton EV at a time is a patently absurd concept to anyone with a basic grasp of bare-knuckle physics. Of course, if you buy your Model Y and plug it in at your place overnight to your wall box charger, which runs off the grid the way most people do, this involves the emission of roughly the same CO2 per kilometre tomorrow as that dude you probably don't speak to from next door because he bought a diesel dual cab ute, inconveniently. This is a fact, okay? You don't therefore have to like it. It's still a fact. Facts. Always rolling with their give a fuck tank on E in respect of being liked. Baseload power. Roughly 1 kilo of CO2 per kilowatt hour. Something inconvenient that you just have to deal with. Even if we get the sun a-shining 24/7 and the wind a-blowing more hot air dependably than 100 stadia packed with ex-wives. Show me the plan for grid stability in the absence of the current massive synchronised rotating turbines, because it doesn't exist. Where the fuck do you think the 50 hertz comes from? I fail to see how any of this constitutes misinformation. Call me parochial. The Australian Automobile Association's EV index shows there were more than 30,000 battery electric and plug-in hybrid vehicle sales in the second quarter of this year, the first time Australia has cracked that figure in a single quarter. This is what I love about J-flogs, more than anything else. I love so much about them, but this takes the cake. Calling contrary viewpoints misinformation while at the same time bullshitting publicly on such a grand scale. Bullshit and lies are not the same thing, right? And I'm not alleging this is lying, because bullshit can be true, just very selective and cherry-picked to further one's grubby agenda. See, the electric vehicle J-flog's release appears to use independent facts derived from the Australian Automobile Association, or AAA, which is the J-flog for the NRMA, the RACV and the RACQ, etc. It's the AAA's EV index that they're referring to, after all. But when you go to the AAA J-flog website and you find their electric vehicle index, i.e. the source of this miraculous and seemingly independent data on which Sammy J and her J-flog are commenting, here's a kind of interesting footnote. Copyright Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries 2021 and Copyright Electric Vehicle Council, based on information provided by and with the permission of the Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries and the Electric Vehicle Council. I do love that. It's beyond perfect. It's ex-wife number 4 in a latex French maid's uniform whispering, "Dude, life is on. What's wrong with right here on the bench?" She's spontaneous like that, even today. So, what we've got here is a JFlog with an EV index that relies on data from 2, personal opinion, fairly grubby JFlogs, and one of the source JFlogs has issued a release here in which I think it would be very easy indeed for the median dogshit dumb journalist in Australia to assume the information provided is somehow independent from the comments in the release. And I'm not saying that the data is wrong in any way, I'm just saying it seems fairly grubby to me, especially holding what's your own data at the end of the day at arm's length like this, and then fudging it up to 100k sales for the year by bundling up plug-in hybrids, which in practice remain largely combustion powered after all. And the electric vehicle JFlog has the temerity to characterise points of view at odds with the vested interests of itself and its corporate shithead members as misinformation. That's the cake of communicational brilliance iced with epic audacity. Personal opinion. It's JFlog inception right there. Life, it seems, really is on. Just don't look up, dude.